Hello, and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Tian Yu. Coming up in this edition, 16 people were killed in two incidents in the U.S. on the first day of 2025. Emergency relief supplies provided by China have arrived in Vanuatu's capital. Displaced Palestinians in central Gaza are relying on charity kitchens due to a lack of food aid. We begin in the U.S. Two incidents on New Year's Day have killed 16 people in the United States. A man rammed a pickup truck into holiday revelers in New Orleans, killing 15 people and injuring dozens of others. A Tesla Cybertruck explosion outside a Trump hotel in Las Vegas also killed a person and injured 7 others. President Joe Biden says that law enforcement authorities are investigating whether the two incidents were related. Alastair Beverstock has more from the scene of the truck attack in New Orleans.
This devastating attack, which occurred in the small hours as revelers celebrated here in the French Quarter, which is party central here in New Orleans. This truck came in, ploughed through, killing at least 15, injuring dozens more, but it wasn't finished then. The suspect then fired on the responding police officers, wounding 2 of them, and then himself lost that shootout and died here. And then further on down the line, we saw that the authorities identified the possibility of 2 IEDs, improvised explosive devices, inside the vehicle itself. So that, of course, called in the bomb squad, that called in the special authorities, and the entire area has been cordoned off. And New Orleans, indeed, in the French Quarter, is on high alert for any further public disturbance. So a lot going on here, and police vans all over as New Orleans comes through this tragedy. President Biden speaking about this suspect here in New Orleans, who's been identified now as Shamsuddin Jabbar. He himself is a U.S. citizen, a U.S. military veteran, and one who has found to have had sympathies, at the very least, for the Islamic State.
The FBI has reported to me the killer was an American citizen, born in Texas. He served in the United States Army on active duty for many years. He also served in the Army Reserve until a few years ago. The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill.
Well, about this event in Las Vegas, we've seen that the Cybertruck itself was parked outside of the Trump Tower Hotel in Las Vegas, and then, according to the authorities, was detonated using fireworks, gas tanks and camping fuel in order to detonate that electric vehicle. And indeed, electric vehicles can certainly be detonated inside a Cybertruck, but the authorities still do not know the identity of the suspect.
That was Alastair Beverstock reporting. Many New Orleans residents say they are shocked by the incidents.
We were, outside on St. Peter watching the fireworks. Went to bed about 1. Didn't hear anything other than my phone was, blew up with a bunch of family from Indiana asking if we were okay. Looked outside our front door and we saw caution tape and dead silence, and it's eerie.
So we didn't see any problem. Everybody was having a lot of fun. There were a lot of people there. There were a lot of police, mounted police, as there always is in this kind of a crowd. We saw a lot of drunk people, but we didn't see any problems at all.
Law enforcement has identified the driver as 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar. For more on the incidents in the U.S., Asiya Namdar spoke to David Katz, founder of Global Security Group. Katz discussed what the focus of the investigation should be and which security measures are effective in preventing vehicles from striking large crowds.
What I'd be focusing on now is, number one, did this person act alone? And if not, number two is, who else is involved, and are other attacks imminent? So that's probably the first course of action. They're going to go through every bit of social media the perpetrator had. I don't know if they report the fire where allegedly this person was staying. I don't know if that report is correct, but if it is correct, I would suspect that you'd have computers and things like that were destroyed in that fire, because those are a treasure trove of information. But still, there's going to be there'll be enough evidence to figure out what this person was doing, who he was communicating with, and see whether this was a lone wolf attack or in fact a conspiracy.
Based on what we know, was there enough security and police presence on Bourbon Street? And even if there was, David, how much can they really do when someone behind the wheel is speeding in an area crowded with New Year's Eve revelers?
Having barricades or French barriers, that's not enough, because as we see, if the initial report was correct that there were barriers up, then the suspect just drove right through. What does the NYPD do? They take garbage trucks. They park them at intersections. There is no way, I don't care what rate of speed you're driving at, you're not getting through into the area where the crowds are assembled. So it's a matter of, there's an axiom, physical security first. You can't rely on a barrier and the presence of law enforcement to deter someone who's in a truck barreling at a high rate of speed. What you need is an object of sufficient mass and weight to stop that person from actually gaining access to the area where the crowds are.
That was David Kotz, founder of Global Security Group, sharing his insights on the two tragic incidents in the U.S. on the first day of the year. Turning to the South Pacific, a batch of emergency relief supplies offered by the Chinese government has arrived in Vanuatu to support the quick-hit country's disaster relief efforts. The aid includes tents, folding beds, solar lights, food, water purifiers, and medical equipment. A 7.3 magnitude earthquake struck Port Vila last month, killing at least 14 people and injured over 200 others. Chinese Ambassador Li Minggan said that Beijing will continue to assist with recovery efforts. Vanuatu caretaker Prime Minister Charlotte Sawai expressed appreciation for China's assistance.
Well, it's a great support from China to bring help to assist those who are in need, because it addresses many sectors, not only shelters, but also medical supplies. But I'm so thankful this morning and glad to see that the Chinese plane arrived with 35 tons of goods. The relationship of China and Vanuatu since 1982 continue to grow, and it is highest one this time, and we are so happy as a small country to be a good friend of a big country and powerful country as China.
China also sent 4 engineers to assist with Vanuatu's post-earthquake response. Huang Fei has more.
On the first day of 2025, China is sending 35 tons of emergency supplies to Vanuatu under the banner China Aid for a Shared Future. The shipment, totaling 235 cubic meters, includes essential items such as tents, folding beds, water purification equipment, solar panel lights, emergency food, and medical supplies. Chinese technical specialists are already on the ground at the request of Vanuatu's government. 4 structural engineering experts from the Chinese Earthquake Administration are assessing building safety in hard-hit areas and investigating secondary disaster risks. This marks the first time China has sent a disaster assessment team to a Pacific Island nation. The Chinese government has also committed $1 million in emergency funds for Vanuatu's disaster relief and reconstruction. Chinese companies operating locally, as well as the Red Cross Society of China, have also provided timely support. The Foreign Ministry says China stands ready to provide further aid to support Vanuatu's needs.
That was Huang Fei reporting. In the Middle East, Palestinians in Gaza have ushered in 2025 amidst renewed casualties from Israeli attacks across the territory. Local officials say the attacks killed at least 32 Palestinians in the Strip on New Year's Day. Rami Amagari has more from Gaza.
the new beginning of the new year for the Gazan people, for the Palestinians here, is a continuation, resumption of Israeli army actions across the Gaza Strip. And since overnight, a series of Israeli air raids hit multiple homes in different parts of the Gaza Strip, in various parts of the Gaza Strip, including the latest in the Shajaiya neighborhood in Gaza City, in which 6 people, including 3 children, were killed in a fresh ground Israeli airstrike on a home in Shajaiya. We go up to the north. We have the 4 people. 4 people were killed actually in a strike on a home in the Jabalia refugee camp. Another home was hit by the Israeli army in the same Jabalia refugee camp. 2 other homes were hit in 2 other neighborhoods of Gaza City since overnight up to this moment. This is the situation. More escalation on the ground by the Israeli army on different targets in the Gaza Strip. As the people around the world celebrate the New Year, the people of Gaza is still mourning the death and the passing away of their beloved ones. This actually, despite the fact that this comes amidst Israeli determination, Israeli army, Israeli officials' determination and announced determination that they will continue their strikes on the Gaza Strip to make or to force Hamas to succumb or to surrender. I'd like to note here, notably, there were 2 rockets fired on nearby Israeli towns. One was intercepted by the Israeli dome of the defense system. Another hit an open area. And afterwards, absolutely after this incident, the Israeli army ordered neighborhoods in the Liberation Refugee Camp and central Gaza Strip to leave immediately for Israeli army actions over there. That's the situation.
That was Rami Amagari reporting. Displaced Palestinians in central Gaza are relying on charity kitchens for food due to the lack of aid and soaring prices amid the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. Arham Shaheen is a displaced woman from Gaza City. She says those who still have homes and could have bought food and cooked it can no longer do so because of the high prices.
We've been in the war for a year and 4 months. Because of the high prices, even the people who used to be able to cook and eat in their homes are now unable to cook and buy food. Everyone is turning to charities. Even the charities have become very crowded because the number is large, and there are charities that have closed due to lack of support.
The United Nations reported on Monday that 80% of households in Gaza have at least 1 child going without food, and over 96% of children, as well as pregnant and breastfeeding women, suffer from inadequate nutrition. The Israeli military says it only targets militants and blames Hamas for civilian deaths because its fighters operate in residential areas. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have carried out raids in the occupied West Bank, arresting at least 22 Palestinians. Rights groups estimate that Israel is holding over 10,000 Palestinians in various detention centers. Jonathan Regev has more from Tel Aviv.
The IDF usually comments when it holds raids in the West Bank. They're held mostly in the northern West Bank, the area of Jenin and the area of Nablus. And what Israel generally is saying is that it wants to prevent the West Bank from becoming the Gaza Strip. Israel was present in the Gaza Strip up until 2005, and at that time the main Palestinian power in the Gaza Strip was the Palestinian Authority, the Fatah faction. But then after the Israeli forces left, Hamas took over and things escalated until they reached the October 7th massacre and everything that occurred after that. What Israel is saying is that all of the actions that it is taking in the West Bank are meant to prevent a similar situation there, a situation in which Hamas and the Islamic Jihad take control of the area from the Palestinian Authority. And yes, it involves a lot of raids. The operation in the West Bank actually began way before October 7th. It began actually in 2022 after a string of attacks within Israeli territory in cities such as Beersheba and Hadera inside Israel. Then Israel initiated a major offensive in the West Bank, and practically every night, before and after October 7th, raids are held and people are taken into detention, into custody, many of them being eventually sentenced to many years for their activity in militant action. This is an activity that has been ongoing for quite some time, and there's no let up in this, regardless of what is happening in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria. This is something that has been going on for quite some time, and at least for the moment, it doesn't seem as if anything of that is about to stop.
That was Jonathan Regev reporting. Now, recapping today's headlines. 16 people were killed in 2 incidents in the U.S. on the first day of 2025. Emergency relief supplies provided by China have arrived in Vanuatu's capital. Displaced Palestinians in central Gaza are relying on charity kitchens due to a lack of food aid. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports, and culture, you can subscribe to The Beijing Hour, a 1-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Tian Yu. Thank you for listening.